everybody, my name is Tiffany. I'm the Tipsy Artist, and we're here today to paint You Are My Sunshine. And this is a very special request for a very special little girl. Her name is Hayden, and she can't come to the live shows right now because she's not feeling very well, but we're praying that she's going to be absolutely healed, and I'm praying for her every day. Hi, Hayden. So I'm going to go ahead and paint with her today, and it's going to be awesome. And I'm going to show you the original, what we're going for. This is the traced out template. This is going to be what it will look like when we're finished. And then this is what it looks like traced at the very beginning. Okay, so in my classes I've got all these little patterns that you can use. So I've got the petals here, and I've got circles, and I've got chevron patterns, and all this fun stuff, so it makes it really easy during the class. So Hayden has one of these at home. We made this for her, and I've got one, so we're ready to rock and roll. All right, I'm going to talk about my tools that I've got to help me paint. So I'm going to start with my little family of brushes here. Let's introduce these guys to you. This is Big Daddy. This is Mama. This is Little Buddy. And this is Little Bit. And then I've got a rag here to dry my brushes off. I've got paint plates, mixing plates, got my water handy, and I've got extra brushes, and of course I've got all my paint. So the first step that I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start with black paint, just using student acrylic black paint, very simple. And I'm going to go ahead and squirt some of this on my plate here, get a whole bunch, because this is what we're going to start with right here. And I'm going to start with my Big Daddy brush. So I'm going to go ahead and just push right into the paint. All right, you can see me load the brush. It's pretty simple. I don't use any water to start with acrylic paint, well, with student acrylic paint, because we don't need any. This paint is just the right consistency, just as it is. And we don't want to add any water or that will thin it out too much. All right, so it's a good consistency. I've got a loaded brush. And so I'm going to start to paint in everywhere that I see black. So that's going to be in my background here. And then it's also going to be inside in here. And it's also going to be in my chevron pattern in here. So a couple of things. When I'm doing the large areas, I want to make sure that my handle is out to the side and that the flat side of my brush faces the canvas. This gives me really good coverage. And then when I get around line edges, then I want to hold the brush more like a pencil, and I want to hold it like this. And that way I can do a nice line edge that comes around the shape of the flower. Just like that. Okay. And then when I get to these smaller areas in here, I will need to switch my brush. So I'm a big fan of Little Buddy when it comes down to this area here. So I'll take my Little Buddy brush and I'll paint into the chevron pattern right in through here. Okay. So we'll get to that here in a minute. And then of course in through here too. I'll use my Big Daddy as much as possible, but I will have to switch over to Little Buddy. He's a great tool for getting into those smaller areas. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. You're going to see me just kind of paint for a while, so here I go. In with the black paint. Okay, we just finished all of our black. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and clean off my brush here. My next step is to come in with all of the yellow part of the flower, but first, before I do that, If you used a Sharpie, you'll be in pretty good shape, but we don't want to lose this line that comes in between every petal, so I need to make sure that I preserve that. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use the line edge of my brush, and I'm going to paint a brown line in between every petal. Because if I just start to paint in all of my petals with all that gold color that we're going to mix up, then I will lose every line in between each petal, and we don't want to do that because then you'll be kind of lost wondering where are my petals. All right, so starting with some brown paint just to make sure that we preserve that line in the middle. And what's beautiful about the brown paint is that when we come back in with the creamy gold colors in between, it blends really well with the brown paint. So it's kind of a nice look when that starts to happen. So I've just got some pure brown paint. There's no mixing here. So I'm going to take my brush and just push right back and forth into that. Got a nice thin line edge right there. And I'm going to just start to paint brown lines around every petal. Now we have brown lines between every petal that we've got. And then this way, when we start to paint in this gold color that we're coming in with next, then we're not going to lose that petal shape. The next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to mix up that really pretty gold color. And some of the blending actually happens on the canvas. But I'm going to mix up a nice creamy color, and then we're going to dip into multiple colors to just push directly onto the canvas, onto the petal. So we'll be pushing into the creamy color that we mix up, just the pure gold, some yellow, maybe even a touch of brown too. It's all very pretty. We're going to be working back and forth and alternating between all of those really pretty colors. So the first thing I want to do, I'm going to be using my Big Daddy brush here, but I'm going to go ahead and wipe them off a little bit. Put them in the water, make sure and dry them off really well before the next step. And then the mixing here. I've got some gold paint. This looks a lot like mustard. So I'm going to put some of that here on my mixing plate. And then I'm going to do a little bit of white. So just a basic primary bright yellow. All right, so I'm going to pick up a nice big dollop of that gold, and then a little pea-sized amount of that white, and then a little pea-sized amount of that bright yellow. I'm going to mix all that together, and that lightens and brightens it up a little bit. So that's going to be the base color. That's going to be mostly what we use. And then as I come into the flower, I'll actually use all of these colors. So I'm going to play a little bit and have fun. And I'm going to be pushing into this color that we mixed up. And then I'll be touching my brush into a little bit of the pure gold and also a little bit of the pure white and a pure yellow. So it's going to be kind of fun. I can kind of play with it and start to apply that onto each petal. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to be working in these horizontal strokes through every petal here. And then I can also touch into a little bit of white and pull that through. See how pretty that is when it's just done directly onto the canvas? It allows some of that white to still show through, because if you blend everything together, then you lose some of that white in a pure state. So it's really pretty as just a highlight. Now I'm going to touch into some of that yellow and push that through. And as you're doing this, you're going to overlap possibly over some of this black and then maybe over some of the brown, and that's okay because we're going to come back at the very end and we're going to do another hard black line that will come all the way around, and then we'll do another hard brown line that will come around each petal. Okay, now that we have all of our petals painted, now it's time for me to go back around and add a nice firm brown line around each petal, and then also black around the circle here and around any of the outside edges that need a little bit of touch-up. So I'll be using both my Big Daddy brush, I've got to get a clean one, and then also my Little Buddy brush, because they both have line edges. They get into, this one can get into small corners, do little line edges, and then this one can do the long lines that we need to do around each single petal. So if you're just at home and you're washing these out and starting fresh, please remember that after you wash out your brush, make sure and dry it off really well, because if you have any excess water in your brush and you go to start making these lines, once that excess water with that paint hits the canvas, it will create what looks like a mascara run that will just run all the way down the canvas. So you don't want that to happen. Just make sure and dry off your brushes really well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with my Big Daddy brush, and I'm going to start with all the brown lines that go around each petal, and then I'm going to come back in with my Little Buddy brush, and I'll work that through as well if I need a smaller brush for a smaller area. And then of course I'm going to do the long black lines that come around the whole shape of the inside, and then any touch-up black work that I need to do around each petal. We are now done with all of the painting part. The only last step that we need to do is we need to work out our lettering. So what I always tell people, you're welcome to be a free spirit, of course, and just start to paint it on. However, what normally happens is that people start painting and they run out of room and they get half the word and they actually just run off the canvas and have to start over again. So a little bit of planning is always really wise with this, and so I suggest getting a ruler and a pencil, and I make a line wherever I want my words to be. And so I do like a line, let's just say, we'll just start like right in through here, and we'll make a line right through there, and then I can make another line like right in through here, like that. And then I pencil on the words, and then I follow my words. If you're at home doing this, I highly recommend a Sharpie, like a silver Sharpie. It works, it's magical over black, and then you can go over that with a little bit of white paint. Or if you have a white paint pen, that's even more magical. It's very challenging for beginners to do lettering that is that fine and that precise, but Sharpies or paint pens are a beautiful thing. So the penciling that I did, though, going back to that, any kind of lines that you make as grid marks to help position this, that can be erased. I'd give it a day. I mean, acrylic paint sets up in about 15 minutes, but just in case, you want to make sure that your paint is nice and dry, so the next day you can come back with an eraser and erase any of those pencil marks where you had to make your grid lines, and then any of your paint then should be set up and dry and just fine. So, but again, I do recommend the Sharpie or the paint pen for the lettering. And this is an example of what it looks like. Again, what I did here was I put my ruler mark here, my ruler mark here, and then I just penciled on the lettering. And I actually did this with just a fine paintbrush. If you want to take it to that level, you're certainly more than welcome to, but that would be using this little bit brush and just the white paint. And when I load the brush for something like this that takes a really fine point, I like to just twirl the head of the brush into the paint. That loads it, but it also twists it into a really nice fine point. And then I can just, like, I just had pencil marks here, so I would just follow this along with my paintbrush. Just like that. And another little trick that I tell people with lettering, if you're having a hard time getting a steady hand, another little trick is to rest the weight of your hand on your pinky. That acts as like a little training wheel, and it keeps your hand steady while you're doing the lettering like this. So that's another really good trick. So that is a beautiful wrap on our beautiful painting that's called You Are My Sunshine. And Hayden, I hope you love it. I know you will. This is such a great message, and I know that your mom sings this to you every night, and I think that is so cool. And I'm going to keep on praying for y'all, and Hayden, I just hope that you start to feel really good really soon, and hope you really enjoy your painting. And I love it, and it looks great. So thank you again for joining me today. It's been such a special opportunity, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Have a great day.